All right, let's talk about those teachers. You know the ones you never forget, who made complicated stuff suddenly click. Well, what if I told you it wasn't some kind of magic? It's a craft, a real learnable craft. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain on how it's done.
So let me ask you, what is the secret to great teaching? I mean, really think about it. We've all had amazing teachers and not so amazing ones. Was it just their personality? Or was there something deeper going on? Something deliberate happening just below the surface?
Well, here's the thing. It's not magic. Not at all. Great teaching is a craft. It's this intentional, really thoughtful process that connects the teacher, the student, and the subject in this beautiful, dynamic way. It's part science, and it's absolutely part art.
And this craft actually has a name: didactics. It sounds a little academic, I know, but the idea is simple. It comes from the Greek word for teach, and it's basically the study of how you turn big educational goals into something that actually works right there in the classroom. It's the playbook for great teaching.
So where do we start? Well, it all begins with a surprisingly simple but really powerful idea called the didactic triangle. It shows us the three key players that are always in the game in any learning situation. First up, of course, you've got the teacher. But they're not just standing at the front of the room talking. They are the architect of this whole experience. They're the one planning, structuring, and guiding the entire journey. Next, and this is so important, we have the learner. The student isn't just a passive sponge soaking up information. No way. Their own background, what they already know, and how engaged they are, all of that actively shapes what's happening. They're basically co-creating the lesson.
And the final piece of the puzzle is the content, the stuff that's being taught. The history, the math, the new skill, that's the what that everything else revolves around.
But here's the real secret, the thing that makes this triangle so brilliant. Great teaching doesn't live in any one of these corners. It lives in the connections between them. Think about that teacher you loved. They weren't just experts in their subject. They were masters of this triangle. They knew how to manage their relationship with you, with the material, and crucially, how to build your relationship with the material. Okay, so if the triangle is the framework, how does a teacher actually work their magic on the content itself? Well, they have a toolkit. 3 specific tools they use to take raw, messy knowledge and make it digestible for students. This idea isn't new. It actually goes all the way back to the 1600s, to a guy named Jan Amos Comenius, who's basically the father of modern education. And his big idea was this: you have to start with what people already know. You build a bridge from the familiar to the new. It seems obvious, but it's a game changer. And here is my absolute favorite analogy for this process. A great teacher is like a gem cutter. They're given this raw, uncut stone. That's the subject matter. And they meticulously cut, shape, and polish it, revealing its brilliance until it's a perfectly clear gem of understanding for the student. So what are the gem cutter's tools? They are order, sequence, and choice. First, the teacher brings order to the chaos, figuring out the core ideas. Then they sequence those ideas, putting them in a logical path, building from A to B to C. And finally, they make a critical choice about what to include and, just as important, what to leave out. You can't teach everything, so you have to pick what matters most. But look, a perfect lesson plan is one thing. What happens when that beautiful plan meets the wild, unpredictable reality of a room full of human beings? Well, that's where the science of teaching meets the art. And this is where something called pedagogical tact comes in. It's the teacher's intuition, their ability to read the room and respond in the moment in a way that's sensitive and right. It's the human element. Honestly, it's a teacher's superpower. And this shows the difference perfectly. On one side, you have a teacher just sticking to the script, even when it's clear the students are lost. That's rigid. But on the other, with pedagogical tact, the teacher sees the confusion and adapts on the fly. Maybe they rephrase a question or tell a quick story to make a point. It's about being responsive, not robotic. Okay, so let's put all of these pieces together now. Let's look at the entire journey, from a set of guidelines on paper to a real, living, breathing learning experience. So the whole journey starts with some big, broad curriculum. The teacher takes that, chooses the right content, orders and sequences it, thinks about who the learners are, applies teaching principles, and then, in the classroom, they make those quick, responsible, in-the-moment decisions. It's a whole transformation from start to finish. So, back to our original question. What's the secret? Well, now we know. Great teaching is never, ever an accident. It is totally intentional, always balancing the teacher, the learner, and the content. It's thoughtfully structured, using those gem cutter tools to make complex ideas clear. And finally, it's wonderfully adaptive, brought to life by that human touch, that pedagogical tact that helps a teacher connect with you exactly when you need it most.
It really is a beautiful and deliberate craft. So the next time you see a great teacher in action, or you find yourself learning something new, you'll know about the incredible structure happening just beneath the surface. Now that you know the science behind it all, how will you see the art of learning differently?